I think that intuitive movement and intuitive eating, I think they can mean something different for everybody, just like this like concept that we learn as health coaches of bioindividuality. I think that it can have your own little spin on it. But for me specifically, when I think about intuitive eating, first, we'll start with that one. I think about gentle nutrition. So, of thinking about what can I add to my plate at each meal and really to energize my body, nourish my body, feel really good, balance my blood sugar.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to another episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host and health coach, Jenn here with you every week. And this week, this episode is particularly interesting. So here's why. Our guest this week also has a podcast. Earlier this year, so it was May 2023 when it aired, she interviewed me on her show and we talked about food and mood. And we got into the vagus nerve and all that good stuff. Now, today, she's joining us on Salad with a Side of Fries, and we're going to take a different approach to food and mood. We're going to dive into intuitive eating and intuitive movement and how our relationship with food can bleed into other areas of our lives. So let me introduce you to our featured guest. She's a certified Pilates and health coach who believes that our mindset impacts our wellness more than anything. She's the founder of PurelyYou, your home for becoming the best version of you with on-demand, body-loving Pilates and motivational health coaching. You can also find her on her podcast, the Purely Podcast. Her mission is to share a different approach to health with women, one that includes being on the same team as your body, is rooted in self-love, impactful mindset shifts, and helps you show up as the best version of you every day. Sound familiar, right? So you get why we vibe. So without further ado, I give you Alysia Pope.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on the other side and be chatting again because I know it's like last time I felt like we just kind of continued going. So I'm excited to do that now on your show.
Yeah. So Leash, it's official. Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. And we were just chatting before we started recording that you just had babies not too long ago. How's motherhood?
It's great. It's great. I think it's really interesting to talk about this intuitive, topic because it's funny where, like you mentioned, in terms of, the relationship with food kind of spreading over into all different relationships and other areas of your life. And I've noticed that I've had to learn like the same intuitive lessons with motherhood as well. And I was like, I had to learn this with food. I had to learn this with movement. And now I'm having to learn it with motherhood too. So that's kind of been like my biggest takeaway with motherhood, because also we live in the society and day and age of information overload, right? And so it's just like, there's so many different schools of thought. There's so many different opinions and people telling you things. And you start to doubt yourself because you can compare yourself to so many other people, which again, common themes across every single area, I think, especially in the health and wellness space. But just learning to really trust my intuition in that space and motherhood that, not all babies are the same. Just because it worked for one baby doesn't mean it's going to work for my babies, and kind of, taking what works, leaving what doesn't, and really listening to them and what they need has been like a huge lesson for me, but it's really been what's been kind of like keeping me sane through motherhood too, because I have twin baby girls for anybody listening. So I had babies, plural, and they're going to be 4 months on the 17th. We're recording this like earlier on. So they're going to be 4 months pretty soon. They just hit 16 weeks yesterday. So it's been amazing. A whirlwind, but I've been absolutely loving it. It's probably like my favorite era yet, just kind of learning how to balance everything and new lessons every day with each new like phase of our lives.
Absolutely. I love that you're sharing this and sort of prefacing the whole thing because like you just said, like we can take what we're talking about today and apply it in so many ways and so many areas. So I love that. And I know, like so many of us, you come to this from your own history with, as you started to mention, like food and movement and all that. So we'll start with your story, but really quick, because I don't want to interrupt us too much. Let me tell our members what they're getting this week.
Yes.
So members Your recipe this week is for healthier pumpkin spice latte. So I feel like Starbucks started with the pumpkin spice like earlier than ever. Seems like it was August, but I don't know. So now that it's October, right, it feels a little more appropriate now. So if you're a PSL kind of person, or you just enjoy the flavor of pumpkin in the fall, I got you covered, because you could make this pumpkin milk piece, and then instead of putting it with coffee, like you could certainly put it with chia seeds and make a chia pudding, or, get creative with this one. So if you want this recipe, be sure you're a member. Go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. For $10 a month, you get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to live Q&A sessions. It's really a total deal and a steal. When you take advantage of the full offerings, you save far more than that $10 cost. A no-brainer way to show yourself that your health is a priority. This membership not only supports you, but also supports this podcast and this community so that we can continue to bring you new episodes every week. So remember, you're going to go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or just click the link in the show notes, because that's way easier than remembering the whole thing. Once you're there, you click support now, enter your email and payment info, click subscribe, and you're all set. That's it. You'll get this week's recipe for the healthier pumpkin spice latte. So, okay, Leash, over to you. Share with everybody your story and, your own experience with this relationship. I was trying to describe it like it's treacherous. It's, it's trauma. It's like all the things, but walk us through it.
Yes, for sure. So I'll kind of keep it more brief, and then we can dive into different areas, because I could probably talk for 45 minutes on like my whole story, and then we can just dive in from there with what everybody wants to hear more about. So really looking back, I think we talked about this a little bit when you were on my show as well, but I grew up in the 90s. And what I remember, my first ideas about what like health was or anything like that, it was always attached to how you looked. And when I remember like my childhood, I remember a lot of the older women in my life doing things like Weight Watchers, or like the really tiny, tiny stick thin models on the covers of magazines, and, that 90s look where it was almost just like, it didn't look healthy at all, in my opinion,
Totally.
And thankfully we have really moved further away from that. But I thought that, health meant, oh, you just ate salads, or, and when you look a certain way, people treat you differently. I learned that lesson very young. I think that kids, especially like, late elementary school, early middle school, I started to just really like compare myself to other girls, of how I looked. And I noticed, oh, well, people treat you differently if you look a certain way. And so those are just ideas that got implanted really young. And so those kind of trickled over into like every area of my life, I would say, until my like mid 20s. And that common theme was, how can I make like myself like look in a certain way and act in a certain way to make other people like me, accept me, love me, think of me as like the fun one, etc. And that theme just really continued. And I think that when looking back, and that's why like the self-love piece is such a big piece of my journey, because I needed to learn the lesson of, you need to figure out how you can serve yourself first and love yourself first, not try to like conform to make other people love you and do things for them. You have to act out of a place of what's best for you, because that's how you're going to show up as your best version of you in every single area. And so in college, for example, I did like the Special K diet. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, of course I do.
Yeah, the Special K diet. I did that. And, because freshman year, like kind of went all out, and, it was like unleashed, and I was just like drinking all the time. And I gained a lot of weight freshman year. And then, of course, I came back after doing the Special K diet over the summer and got so much praise, right? So it just like reconfirmed all of the things that I had already thought. And then of course that does not pair well with like drinking when you're in a sorority and things like that. So I just kind of continued that throughout college, and just, again, did not really have any knowledge behind what true health was. I just thought it was 100-calorie packs, eating salads, eating vegetables, like no carbs, whatever. So then later on in my like mid 20s, I started to learn more about nutrition. I started to get into podcasts. And, that's also, I think, when podcasts really started getting popular. And I started to really learn, okay, it's not just about, what you're eating. And we talked about this. It's about how you're eating, what you're pairing it with. And, there's this thing called blood sugar balance and just really learning all of that. I did take it way too far in a section of my life, like for a few years, I did take it in the route where it was a little bit unhealthy for me. But then I started to really kind of use mindset shifts around that to really think, okay, how can I think about this instead of what I can't have, which was like the diet culture piece of things for me. And, oh no, I can't have this or I can't have that, or that's a bad food, et cetera. I started to think in the way of, okay, what do I need to add to my plate to feel really good, to feel really nourished, to feel really energized? And when I noticed I started doing that, I noticed that, that intuitive thing of, okay, what am I really craving today? Really felt good in my body. And I started to also kind of implement that with movement. And the movement piece really actually started first for me. I noticed that, again, I was going to these workouts because I think another like big piece of my story is shoulds, right? Like there's so many different areas of where shoulds come in. And I was like, well, a workout should be an hour. You should feel, really depleted after a workout. You should, be sweating like crazy. You should be getting yelled at or running or whatever, like I had all these ideas, like I have to sprint. It has to be really tough on my body to do something or have results. And again, I was really just focused on like how I was looking. But when I took that shift and I started to focus on how I felt, again, same kind of shift that I was making with food, I noticed a lot of changes in my body, but it was more so about how I felt, and I was starting to feel confident. I was starting to feel more energized. I was noticing when I was doing more low impact movements like Pilates that I was starting to feel really energized and feel better. I wasn't feeling depleted after my movement. I was feeling really energized. And I stopped doing things that like didn't feel great to me. And that was kind of where all that like self-love piece of things came in. So again, it's just like all of it is so intertwined, and it actually took like in my mid 20s, I feel like a big turning point of this was like a really shitty relationship that I was in. And I finally noticed, I was like, you know what? I need to stop doing things to please other people. And I need to just really start doing things from a place of like, what's going to be best for me. And I started to like say no to things that I didn't want to do and not really care. And it was hard at first, but like not really care if somebody was going to be upset with me or what they thought, because I was moving out of a place of like love for myself and making those decisions out of that sort of a place. And again, so much interconnectedness in every single area with the relationships, with the food, with the movement, all that stuff. And like we talked about before, like with motherhood. So I think that all of that was my story. We can dive into anything deeper if you want.
Yeah, for sure. I think, I want to get into too, like what made the big shifts for you, which is sort of this approach of what has now become a name in the industry altogether, which is like intuitive eating. And you even talk about intuitive movement. But just so, I guess before we keep going, so that we're all on the same page, let's just define these phrases.
Yeah.
So that we're all coming from the same place.
Yeah, I think that intuitive movement and intuitive eating, I think they can mean something different for everybody, just like this like concept that we learn as health coaches of bioindividuality. I think that it can have your own little spin on it. But for me specifically, when I think about intuitive eating, first, we'll start with that one. I think about gentle nutrition. So, of thinking about what can I add to my plate at each meal and really to energize my body, nourish my body, feel really good, balance my blood sugar. So, whether that's, starting with the protein, fat, fiber, greens, carbs, and then kind of whatever else I want that's going to make me feel good from there. And so that's kind of how I think about intuitive eating, is honoring what I want at each meal, but also honoring from a place of what's going to make me feel really good too. And really just trying to find the middle ground between both of those. And it's funny because the more that I have eaten in this sort of way, the more that I just crave those things that like really give my body energy, that, the more I crave those really balanced meals. So for me, that's like what the intuitive eating piece of things are. I personally think that the education piece of understanding how you can balance your blood sugar, how you can fuel your body from, to really nourish your body and give yourself energy. I think that's huge because that education piece was such a big game changer for me. And so I think there is a lot of intuitive eating out there. And this is where you mentioned that, like, maybe talking about people that might get scared with intuitive eating when we were chatting off air. And I think that's where people get a little bit scared because I think that there is a version of intuitive eating where they think, oh yeah, intuitive eating, I'm just going to eat, the pizza and the hot dogs and the donuts and the sugar and the candy and whatever. And it's like, I think that when you actually start to listen to your body and listen to what your body is craving and kind of removing the noise, you'll be surprised with what you actually crave. But I also think when somebody's first starting out with this, the education component is really empowering. And it's taking that education around nutrition to empower yourself rather than to be super strict and sort of like, or put rules around anything, if that makes sense.
100%. And I always say too, like, I think there's a transition, especially if people come from the history that you and I did of following all the rules and trying everything out there. I believe that education, right, that information is it's sort of the middle piece that allows us to go from following all the external rules to following the internal signals, right? That there's a middle ground. It's not just like flip a switch and we can all of a sudden know what our body is trying to tell us, right? And so I do think that's also where some of that fear comes from because we haven't listened to our own body. We've taught ourselves out of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So I guess that's my question to you is like, what are some of the really tangible things that we can do to relearn or maybe learn for the first time how to interpret what our body is telling us? Like, what does it even mean? Like, what makes me feel good? I know people who've been like, I have no idea what you even mean. What makes me feel good?
Yeah, I think that something that really helped like a lot of my clients and, that helped me, and I've done this with movement as well, is one, starting to like shift the verbiage. Like, so that's where I started to say like, what's going to make you feel good? What's going to make you feel energized, nourished, et cetera. So like there might be different words that you're looking for that really resonate with you. So I would say like, try to figure out what those words are that you want to feel with your nutrition, with your body. And then the second thing is that I started to note is I like to, with my clients, has been like a really, really good exercise to just take a note in your phone and say, how am I feeling before I eat this meal? And like write down what you're eating. How do I feel before? Like write down, how do you feel physically? How do you feel mentally, emotionally? Just a few like seconds to write that down. And then eat the meal. And then see how you feel immediately after. See how you feel maybe 2 hours after. Like check in on things like your fullness levels, check in on things like your energy levels, check in of like how you're feeling emotionally, and really start to note that. And I think that just becoming more present and aware of how the food is making you feel can be a really big game changer, because I think especially in our day and age, we move through things so quickly that like we're scarfing down our meal and then we're moving from this thing to this thing to this thing. And then like we don't even remember what we ate that made us like have an energy spike and then crash, that we are not even connecting the two. So I think that, when you're first starting to implement this, like with the education component, start to really notice how you feel before and after each meal. And you might notice, okay, this actually, I feel like I was hungry an hour later. So tomorrow or for the next meal, maybe I need to add in some more protein, or maybe I need to add in some more veggies or some more fat or whatever that might be. Maybe I need to add in there. And again, that idea, that mindset around it is what really helped me. Like, what do I need to add in versus what do I need to like take away? But there might be something too where you're like, that didn't really set that well with me. Like maybe it was a little bit too much of something and that I didn't really like, or maybe it was too much of sugar and I'm really not feeling great. The difference is that then how you interpret that information, you don't go and say, oh, well, I just need to go on this like crazy thing. I can never eat sugar again, right? It's okay, well, maybe next time I incorporate that. Maybe first I have something that's like a blood sugar balancing meal. And then from there, I'm going to have a little bit, but maybe I'm going to have a smaller portion. So I think it gives you information for how to move forward when you're actually paying attention. Because I think that like that paying attention piece and the journaling is something that I think can really help for you to be a little bit more cognizant, a little bit more aware of how those things are affecting you. So I think that would be like my number one tangible tip, is to really just start to pay attention and check in with your body, do those full body scans when you don't necessarily know, because I think that when we start to pay attention, we all kind of will notice how the food is making us feel. I think it's that actually putting that into action that's like the difficult part with how busy our lives are.
Yeah. And I love what you said too, of like, okay, it's not about completely eliminating that thing. It's how can I then have this the next time or try this differently? And I think that's where you were saying before of, and I love this phrase, like using the nutrition education to empower you.
Yeah.
Rather than to create rules and limit you.
Yep, exactly. And the same exact thing can be implemented with movement too, because I know that you had mentioned to kind of define that as well. So like when I think about intuitive movement, I think about I think accepting that, especially as women, we are in different phases every single day. We are not stagnant creatures. Our energy levels are going to change every single day. Our mood is going to probably change every single day. And I think that so often, like we get in this idea that like we have to do the same thing every single day, like, oh, I have to go and strength train every day for it to do anything or do something or whatever. And I think that kind of separating from that and knowing that you are going to have different energy levels, you're going to have a different mood each day. And so checking in with yourself and asking, how can I move my body today in a way that feels good based on your energy levels, based on what you're craving, based on, how you're feeling in your body, and seeing what that is. Some days, maybe it's a stretch. Some days, maybe it's a spin class. Some days, maybe it's a walk. Some days, maybe it's Pilates. Like it can change. And I think that honoring just, again, that check-in with yourself of what's going to feel good is huge. And also starting to move from a place of how can I move to feel good versus like, how can I move? Again, it's that thing that I was talking about, or that is in my bio, of like not being at war with your body anymore, right? Of you're on the same team with your body. So how can you really start to notice and move in a way that's going to feel really good to you? But you can do that exact same thing that I was talking about with the food. This is how I notice with my clients too. Like, again, saying, how do I feel before this workout? How do I feel after? Like, because when I started doing that for myself, I noticed that the workout I was doing multiple times a week when I was living in Chicago, in a big city, I noticed I was feeling super anxious before. I was really, really tired because I was having to wake up super early to go to the workout. So I was really tired, really anxious every single time I went to the workout. And then even there, like it just didn't feel like my type of vibe. And then afterwards, I started to notice that I felt so depleted the rest of the day. I had trouble focusing. I had, I just didn't feel good. It was not right for me. And when I, again, started to pay attention to that, I was like, okay. And then I started to notice how I was feeling after I was doing Pilates workouts. And I was like, wow, I actually have more energy after. And just because I'm saying that and I'm a Pilates instructor does not mean that that's going to be Pilates for you, right? Like it can be something different for everybody, but also it can be different depending on like what phase of your life you're in, right? I had somebody on my podcast who said that she was a diehard like Barry's bootcamp person, but then she was going through a lot of stress in her life where she was dealing with like a lot of family drama, a lot of things that were taking out a lot of her energy. So then she noticed she needed to start to go to more yoga. So in that phase of her life, she was needing that because she was feeling much more fatigued emotionally and physically in other areas of her life, right? So I think that honoring that we can change, that we're not stagnant beings, that we can just ask ourselves, how can I move? And also removing the rules from it, I think is a big piece of the intuitive movement of it doesn't have to look a certain way. It doesn't have to be a certain length. It doesn't have to like make you sweat or something like that. Whatever your external rules are, because I know that I used to have a lot around movement. That's how I would say with like to implement that.
I love what you're saying because it's all the elements and it's the same approach. We're just applying it in different ways.
Yeah.
And thinking through it. And this, I feel like the way we're sort of talking about this is kind of the food and mood together. right? Or the activity and the mood together. The thing that's popping up in my head and what I think, going back to that fear piece for a second, I think part of it is the fear of, well, what happens if, or what happens when? I feel like I can't get off the couch and my mood is I want to do nothing, right? Like, how do you help people, not just those moments, but also like the anticipation of those moments?
Totally. So I think that when those moments come, I think that, again, that journaling piece, I'm going to keep going back to it because even like when I had my client do it one time, I was like, so did you notice any themes? And she was like, actually, yes. And she only did it for like a week, 2 weeks. And she's like, actually, yes. Every single time I moved, even if I didn't want to before, I felt 1,000 times better. And again, when you start to become aware of that and aware of how like movement is making you feel, and that feeling that you feel while you're moving, and when you actually find a movement that you enjoy, then I think that it becomes easier to hit play on the workout, to go to the studio, to, commit to yourself and show up for yourself. And that's what I always say is like, continue to come back to that feeling. But I think from a very practical standpoint too, I think that we just have to get very honest with ourselves. Because I think that, yes, there are moments where you may just need a rest day. You may just need that time on the couch. Maybe you haven't done much physically, but maybe you're emotionally exhausted through something that you're going with at work or in your personal life, whatever. And you are going to have days like that, and that's okay. But I think getting really honest with yourself and asking yourself, am I physically or emotionally exhausted? Or am I just really resisting this movement or this exercise? And if the answer is the latter, because I think that we all know, right? I think that we all know when it's like, oh, I'm just, maybe I'm just like not showing up for myself right now. And I'm just like, procrastinating it. Or if you genuinely don't have the energy to do something to show up for yourself. So I think that getting really honest with yourself is important. And also if it is the latter, if it is like, okay, if, you're just genuinely, you're like, I'm just really resisting it today, commit to 5 minutes or just commit to, something super, super small. Okay. I'm just going to go on a walk around the block, or I'm just going to turn on like a quick stretch, or, I'm just going to get up and do something, do like 10 squats or something like that, whatever. I think that the second that you start to move, you probably will make it last longer than 5 minutes. And maybe you're done after the 5 minutes and that's fine. And then you're like, okay, I did it, and then the next day, maybe make a commitment to do 7 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever that is. So I think that, making it really attainable and like really bite-sized things too, when you are really resisting it, can be helpful. And also think about in those moments, what is the movement you enjoy the most? Maybe it's a Zumba class, or maybe ask somebody or have an accountability partner or something like that, where you're like, all right, guys, because usually you guys both aren't going to be like resisting it at the same time, same day or whatever, like my mom has her friend come over and they do like my on-demand workouts together. They're like, all right, we have a date. We're doing Alicia's workouts today. So they like her friend comes over and my mom's like, I was so tired today, but we did it.
You were waiting for me. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that that's helpful too.
Absolutely. And I was going to ask you something and now it just went right out of my head.
That happens to me a lot lately with mom brain these days.
I know. What was I going to ask you? Whatever. It'll come back to me. So, okay. So I want to go back to the relationship piece also. But let's do that after a quick break for a message from our partner for this episode. Good?
Yeah.
Okay. Big thanks to DNA Miracles for supporting Salad with a Side of Fries. Because every child is a miracle, DNA Miracles provides the highest quality body and wellness products designed for babies, children, and expectant mothers. All products are gentle, easy to use, and 100% effective when used as directed. DNA Miracles partnered with leading health professionals and scientists who follow the highest standards in ingredient selection to create the most effective skin, hair, and health solutions. As natural as possible, DNA Miracles is the best and safest option on the market for you and your little miracle. From expert pediatricians to real family testimonials, everyone has fallen in love with DNA Miracles. So as we talk about choosing food and activity by following our own body's guidance, we can actually help our kids do that too, by filling in the gaps where their food choices fall short and where our food supply falls short. So you can start with one of the multivitamin options. They start at just $16.95 for 30 servings. And the DNA Miracles Essential Omega-3 is just $39.95. It also tastes delicious. It's like an orange creamsicle. Maybe, though, you're having a baby or you know somebody who just had a baby, or like our guest today, right? You have little ones. The Natural Bath Time Bundle is an incredible gift, or even just start with the Natural Diaper Cream. Here's what I know. Your kids' health is worth it. For less than $1 a day, you can support the health of the littles in your life from day one. And that price is before your 10% off and free shipping for being a Salad with a Side of Fries listener. So simply text the word miracles, MIRACLES, to 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, simply text the word miracles, MIRACLES, plural, miracles, to 844-947-4846. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. Okay, so Leash, on the relationship front, you mentioned that you had a challenging relationship and that you were also a people pleaser. And so walk us through that connection, because I also think that maybe looking at those things can offer insight into the food stuff that may be less clear, instead of looking at the food stuff to teach us about that.
Yes, 100%. So I think in terms of that, like when I look back, I was a people pleaser through and through. And I think that when you are a people pleaser and when you're moving from that place, when you're living from that place, it takes you away from that intuition, right? Because again, similarly to talking about following external sets of rules, well, you're following external expectations because you're not doing things for yourself. You're doing things to please other people. So it's almost like the exact same concept, you know, in that place. And when I think about that, I also just had an idea around like what people would like or what people would want. And the funny thing of it is, and what really like now that I can notice looking back, you almost get that desired result of people like liking you, even not that it matters, but it's just like kind of ironic. You kind of get the desired result of like being more attractive to people, looking more confident to people, because you actually are, when you are honoring yourself and what works for you. I think that's like one of the most attractive qualities in a person, when they, you know exactly what they want, when they know what is going to serve them, when they are so confident in choosing what's going to work for them and, you know, saying no to things that don't work for them, saying yes to the things that do, and being like unapologetic about it and being confident in those decisions. That's probably one of the most attractive things about people. And I wish I could have told my younger self that, you know, of just like, it's almost like a desperate energy almost, you know, of, okay, like, how can I do this or how can I do that? And it just kind of goes to show that following your own intuition, following what's going to work for you is really the only way, you know, because it's just, again, like I said, it's that following those external rules or those external needs of other people, and your needs are not going to always be the same as others. And I think that with relationships in general, I think that the healthiest relationships are when you have the healthiest relationship with yourself. You know, like that's when I met my husband, was when I absolutely did not care or like did not need that external validation because I was giving it to myself. And I was so in the place of like only doing what was working for me. And I think, like, hindsight being 2020, I think that was probably one of the things that he was attracted to the most about me, you know, and that from our relationship to this day, even especially in parenthood, like we both kind of check in and we're like, hey, like you need to take this time for you, or you need to take this, you know, moment or whatever, or you need this or whatever, when we're not able to do it for ourselves. Because in parenthood, I think that's a whole nother topic of, you know, kind of being like selfless and things like that. And it's kind of like the opposite of being selfless, of how can you show up for yourself to be that best version of you, and checking in with yourself each day. Like a tool that really, really helped me when I was first doing all this and really getting into it was the 5-minute journal. And because it has those prompts where you write down, okay, what are 3 things that are going to make you feel really good today? And you can just write these down yourself too. And then also it says like, what are 3 things that would make the day great? What are 3 things you're grateful for? So I think that just kind of, again, like starting with that mindset shift right off the bat of what are 3 things that you're grateful for, writing that down, that abundance mindset. And then what are 3 things that are going to make the day great? So like I usually would use those of, okay, what would make my day great? It would make it great if I got in some form of movement today. And then something that I wanted to do, like productivity. Usually it's something that's like health related, work related, and then like self relationship, personal related. I write those things down. And then like the daily affirmation of really giving yourself whatever you need, I think is really, really important. And that really helped me kind of to get into that mindset. So if anybody's kind of looking for a tool for that, that's one that I would definitely recommend.
Yeah, it's so interesting, right? Like, I just want to reiterate this because what I'm hearing is the people pleaser in us is that same external dictation of the process, like the rules of the diet. That it's all about everything that's happening around us rather than what's happening inside of us, or even learning to know what we think and what our opinion is, or, you know, what our mood is, all those kinds of things. So I know in your work, you talk a lot about, you know, self-love as part of self-improvement. But I think a lot of times people come to self-improvement from a desire to change.
Yep.
And it's almost like the opposite of the self-love.
Yeah.
How do we reconcile those?
So I think, again, changing our definition of what self-love is. So I think that how I think about self-love, I think the ultimate version of self-love is continuously showing up each day and asking yourself, how can I be 1% better? Because as I think about all of these things, there's not necessarily a finish line when it comes to our health, when it comes to like being our best self. I think that it's continuously looking and reevaluating, how can I be a better version of myself because I love myself, because I know I can consistently grow. I can consistently, you know, get better. Because I think that if we think about, oh yeah, like self-love is just being perfect as I am. No, it's like, I think that self-love is loving yourself every day, but also loving yourself enough to say, okay, this is an area I want to improve upon, because I don't think any of us are perfect, right? Like there's always some way that we can improve, but I think that our approach to how we improve is really important, right? So that's, again, instead of the being at war with your body, it's okay, how can I be on the same team as my body to like move in a different way? Like it's instead of killing yourself or whatever, or being, you know, because I don't think that that approach works at all. And that's why that, like, you know, moving from a place of self-love, eating from a place of self-love, like just looking at yourself and saying, how can I be a little bit better? And knowing that you can improve is the ultimate version of self-love to me.
Yeah, it's like self-awareness versus self-loathing, right? Like there's a difference in there. And ultimately, I'm hearing 2 things, right? One piece is we want to stop compartmentalizing and thinking about how we're showing up for our kids, how we're showing up for our job, how we're showing up for our family, how we're showing up for ourselves, right? Instead of thinking about all those as separate things, that it's really all one and the same. And that it's about the intention behind it. It's the intention behind the movement, the intention behind the food choice.
Yes.
That actually dictates whether it's serving us and being part of this intuitive self-love approach, or from the, you know, trying to change ourselves, the negative side of it.
Yes, 100%. And I think you hit the nail on the head, and like the intention behind everything, I think is so big. Like when I shift my intention with movement from being smaller to, you know, I want to show up because I want to have the intention of having more energy, of feeling really energized, of feeling really good in my body, of, you know, getting that mindset shift. That was so huge. And I think that that's like that shift of focusing on how you look to how you feel, you know, and I think that there's nothing wrong. I would always like to preface this. There's nothing wrong with having aesthetic goals. Of course, like we're human, like, and you deserve to feel confident in your body, however that is. But I think that removing the focus from that and really just finding those things where, okay, how can I make the intention that like, I want to feel really confident in my body. I want to feel really good in my body. I want to feel energized. I want to feel nourished, etc. and shifting the intention, you'll notice that that really comes out in everything that you do. And it does sound woo-woo, especially if you haven't done it before. But I think that the more that you work on it and the more that you start to change your verbiage, the more that it starts to happen. And I think that that's like one thing too, because I think that with the verbiage or with, say, like you have negative self-talk, or say you have, that could be around yourself. It could be around movement. It could be with food, whatever. The first step, simply stop saying it out loud, and maybe have somebody around you that is holding you accountable, like way back when, like a few years ago when I was at this different company, I was at a company called Hello Wellness, and we hosted a retreat with Kelsey Wells. And she told us that one of the things that her and her husband did for each other was if they ever said anything negative about each other or about themselves. So say I said oh my God, I'm really that was so stupid of me. I'm not being my smartest, whatever it was, just talking down on yourself. Then her husband would tell her stop talking about my wife that way. Say 3 positive things about yourself. Say 3 nice things about yourself. And ever since she told me that, I've implemented that with my husband, and he does the same thing to me. So it could be with a roommate, with a friend, with your mom, whoever. But I think that whoever you're around the most, and start to do that, because if you start doing it for other people, they'll start doing it for you too. And I think that the language that we use is so, so important. So start to change that language, and you'll start to kind of change the action, I think, as well.
100%. I love it. Wrapping this up, a final thought or something else, anything we missed, something you want to share?
I mean, we really covered a lot of it, but I would just say that really focus on that trial and error. And also, again, that mindset on there is no finish line, and it's a constant journey, and continuing to show up, and don't get too attached to any one way of eating or any one way of moving or whatever. It's going to be a constant evolution depending on where you're at in your life. And I think when we get too attached, that's why I don't love labels anymore, right? Around
totally.
Oh, I'm plant-based, or I'm this or whatever. I don't love that, because I think it really puts you too much in a box, and it doesn't allow you to have that intuitive place. So I think that removing the labels and continually embracing that evolution, and being okay with trying new things, being okay with, that, okay, yeah, maybe your movement journey might change. Maybe your self-love journey might change or look different each day. I'm in a whole different era right now with motherhood, and how my movement practice has changed a lot. My eating practice has changed. All these things have changed so much. And I've had to kind of change and ebb and flow with that in this new season of my life. My self-care habits look very different now. It's maybe it's a 1-second meditation, or maybe I'm able to journal or whatever. Sometimes it's just a few deep breaths for my mindset. So I think that being okay with that evolution and ebbing and flowing, and just continuously checking in and asking yourself, what do you need to feel good, to feel like the best version of yourself, is so, so important.
I couldn't agree more. And I just want to point out to everybody, even the phrasing, talking about our words, my food practice, my activity practice, even calling it a practice is part of that evolution and shift and change and learn and grow.
Yeah.
So awesome. Okay. It's time for our rapid fire off-topic questions that I ask every expert who joins us. Are you ready?
Yes.
What's the best thing you've done for your health this week? What's the naughtiest thing you've done related to your health this week?
The best thing I've done has been daily walks. It makes me so sane. And also is just so good for everybody in our family, is our daily walks at the end of the day. The naughtiest thing, I have not been drinking enough water at all. And I've been super dehydrated. I've noticed it. So that's why I've been trying to chug this the whole time, because I've just have been losing track of time to hydrate.
If you weren't a holistic health coach and Pilates trainer, what would you do?
I would do event planning, because I love events, and that's what I did before. So events.
Your favorite book on any topic other than your area of expertise, or a fiction book?
Fiction book, Verity. So good, by Colleen Hoover.
Good. Yeah. If you could cure one ailment, disease, or sickness, what would it be?
Probably anxiety.
Oh,
I think so many people suffer with anxiety, and I think that would be good for so many people.
If you were a superhero, what would be your superpower?
The first thing that came to my mind was reading people's minds, but I don't think I want to know what's going on in other people's minds. I think that's way too much.
That's scary. Yeah.
So I think the ability to just not give a shit what other people think. Because I think that so often, especially in my line of work, what I do and, being a presence on social media in any sort of way, it's so hard to not care what other people think or whatever. I think that just removing that comparison, I think would just be amazing.
Yes. I know we could have a whole other conversation about that. What's your biggest pet peeve?
I hate when people chew with their mouth open or that lip smacking. It just sends me off.
I know it. All right. Last one. In your opinion, what's the next frontier in wellness?
The next frontier in wellness, I would say, I think right now, I think that people are starting to realize the importance of protein, including women. And I think also I would say that the importance of eating protein, especially with women, because I think that so often, especially that 90s that I was referencing, it was so a ton of plant-based and, no protein and, just eating little. And I think that people are really going to start to look at bigger, fuller, more nourishing meals, especially when it comes to protein.
For sure. Well, Leash, thank you for being here. Tell everybody how to connect with you. I know you have an offer for everybody too, so give us all the details.
Yes. So you can find me at PurelyYou Pope on pretty much every social media channel. So Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. And YouTube, I share free Pilates workouts every Monday. So that's new. And my podcast goes there as well. And then my podcast, the PurelyYou Podcast, available everywhere podcasts are found. And then finally, PurelyYou. So you can go to PurelyPope.com/PurelyYou and you can claim your 7-day free trial. And you can also use the code salad with a side of fries and you will get a free month. So that'll be 5 weeks free because it'll also combine with the 7-day free trial. And that is on-demand body living Pilates. There is also some health coaching modules on there, but new workouts are added every single Friday. And there's tons of categories: postnatal, prenatal, cardio Lattes, elevate with props, mindful mat sculpt, and you can kind of find everything, quickies, etc. So much on there and more added. And I think there's 100 videos on there now. So you can definitely find something that works for you.
Nice. Well, thank you again. Just appreciate your time to be here, your perspective, and this incredible gift to everybody here. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So everybody, it's time for our nutrition nugget. So on Friday, we're going to talk about Celsius, that energy drink, right? So admittedly, I'm generally not the biggest fan of these kinds of drinks, but this one is actually really intriguing. So we'll talk about it on Friday in this week's nutrition nugget. So be sure, wherever you're listening, click the plus sign or the follow button on the app so that your app will alert you when the nutrition nugget is live for you to listen Friday morning. Well, as always, everybody, I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram or really all social media. I'm at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Website is asaladwithasideofries.com. Pick your platform, send a message. I want to hear from you, your takeaways, your ideas, your questions. By the way, send an email. We're going to do an episode answering all of your emails. So send an email or a message through the site and let us know that you want us to answer it on the show. So Alysia Pope, thank you again for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been so much fun.
So fun. And friend, if you are not already a member, join our membership program by going to glow.fm/saladwithasideofries to show your support for this podcast, this community, but most importantly, support your health. You'll get this week's recipe for the healthier pumpkin spice latte. So until next week, remember, following your body's signals for food and movement doesn't have to be scary. It just requires a bit of learning and a practice of checking in with yourself. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.